Welcome to the Grow Podcast. I'm Pastor Mike with New Hope Network. We're here to help you take your next step in your relationship with Jesus. I'm so glad you're with us today.
What's up, New Hope family? Welcome back to the Grow Podcast. My name is David. I am here with Pastor Mike, as always. Hello, Pastor Mike.
Hello, David.
This is episode 47.
47.
We are 3 episodes away from episode 50.
You can do math. I'm impressed.
Nailed it. You're welcome.
3-pointers. So, yeah, that'd be a basketball
it's
thing.
Basic basketball math. Yeah. Speaking of episode 50, we are accumulating questions.
Oh, we are.
For a question and answer segment that will be the bulk of episode 50 podcast. There's also going to be some surprises. So make sure you're joining us for episode 50. It's going to be a good time. But I've even just today received questions from 2 new people.
Oh, wow.
Excuse me. So the questions are starting to add up. I'm very excited. I haven't even, when they weren't coming in quickly, I was like, I'm just going to have to go around the office and get questions. But they've started to flow in. So thank you to those of you who have sent questions in. And we would love to have more. They can be anything.
Mm-hmm. I did this, actually. Maybe I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Did this for our student ministries here recently.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
And,
I think you mentioned that.
Yeah, they had a stack of them, and they were all over the map. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, and that's so... I genuinely... Well... I probably should have assumed that everybody who joins us for the Grow Podcast is more mature than I am. But other than my father, who also sent a question in, and you'll be able to pick out which one that is.
We'll know that one.
If you wonder where I got my sense of humor. Yeah. But there's been some like good, interesting questions so far. I've really liked them. I've enjoyed going over them and preparing them. So make sure you send those in. You can email them to me. That's david@newhopewilliston.com, and make sure you spell David, D-A-V-E-D. Otherwise, it'll just go to nobody.
Spelled it out, because sometimes you just say David with an E, and it's like, where do we put the E? Just saying.
That's fair. Yeah. D-A-V-E-D at newhopewilliston.com. You can also send them to Pastor Mike, but then that'll ruin the surprise, and that's way less fun.
Then I'll be able to prepare.
So, yeah, don't do that. It's going to be way more fun to ask these questions. Yes, correct. But again, we'll have some fun. Episode 50 is going to be a good time. I'm excited for that. You've kind of, you're off your game now that we're in the 40s.
Really?
Up through the 30s, for every single number, you had some funny bit. Oh, it's episode 25. We can rent a car. Yeah. And we haven't had that in a while. I'm disappointed.
40s are boring.
Oh, I haven't made it there yet.
Yeah, you'll get there. Yeah.
Sorry. Apologies to all of you out there in your 40s. Yeah. You're not boring. Just your age is boring, is what Pastor Mike's saying. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah.
So how have you been, Pastor Mike?
Good. Yeah.
Wow, that was dynamic. So that's what you all come to the Grow Podcast
that's
for.
What,
that kind of dynamic interaction between me and Pastor Mike.
When our boys come home from college,
which they're home
even
from
in high
college
school.
now.
One of them is for a few days, and the other one is for the summer. But that's some of what you get. And even that's just raising boys is somewhat that way. Of how's your day? How's school? Good. And then it's just dead air. So you learn to ask questions that can't be answered with one word, and then our oldest in particular will get very creative to answer it in one word because he knows what I'm doing.
Has it been nice having them home?
Yes. Yeah. Good.
You don't miss having the quiet, empty nest?
No, they aren't necessarily noisy people, and they're still kind of recovering from school, so they don't get up before 11 a.m. So. And I'm
send your kids to Oakwood, where it takes them weeks to recover from school.
Wasn't that what I went with you? The first couple of days I came home from college, I've just felt wiped out, and my parents I've always said, we just didn't plan on seeing you.
Well, my parents probably didn't plan on seeing me either, but I don't know if it was because I was wiped out from college or I just was a college student and therefore I didn't have schoolwork to do, so therefore I was lazy. Yeah. Granted, I probably hadn't done much of my schoolwork anyway leading up to the end of the semester.
Yeah. We have had a little bit of time together, and then we're going to celebrate Brendan's birthday for one of them because we won't be with him for his birthday.
Is he turning 47?
He's not turning 47.
That would have been a really cool way to connect.
Yeah.
Bring it all back to episode 47.
Here's the way we will connect this, though.
Your youngest child dresses like he's older than 47.
Does, and he's very proud of that. Yeah. The way he describes it is, he said, I want to dress like a grandpa. Now, I think that's an insult to a lot of grandpas, but it's fun. I was trying to transition us. Here's the transition. Is they're attending a college in Oklahoma, Oklahoma Wesleyan University. And this last weekend, we had Dr. Jim Dunn, who is the president of Oklahoma Wesleyan University, teach across all of our campuses and New Hope here.
A dear old friend of mine.
As well. Yeah. You've met him all of once?
No, I believe 3 times.
Oh, 3 times?
I had dinner with him at your house.
Right. Yeah.
And then I drove him and his lovely wife to the airport. Okay. So I count that as a second time. And then at, was it like district conference or whatever it was down in South?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
So I chatted with him.
So you've gotten.
So like I said, we're dear old friends.
He's a longtime friend of mine, actually, all the way back to college, and love having him at Oklahoma Wesleyan University. And just a quick shout out, maybe commercial. If you have kids approaching college age, check that out, and please don't use the distance as an excuse or the cost as an excuse. The return for both of those on the spiritual growth and the most vulnerable time of your kid's life is so important. I watch so many parents who invest from the time they're born to the time they graduate from high school, and then it's like, no, go someplace home or close to home where we can see you every day, and they don't care what they're getting at that college.
Sure.
And college is the most vulnerable time, I believe, of a growing up life. So that's Oklahoma Wesleyan. Obviously isn't the only great school out there, but it is a great school.
It's the only one. There is one good school, and
that's it.
Is in Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
where you happened to have attended college.
I did happen to be there, but I did not. Actually, I did not ever even talk to my kids about going there. They chose to go there on their own through somebody else's influence. So. I don't
know a ton about the college, but I have gotten to know Jim a little bit, and he's an incredible,
phenomenal leader, phenomenal team behind him.
And it was so cool to have him teach this last weekend.
And he closed up our Jesus Never Said series.
He did. It's over. It's all done. You didn't use any of my ideas.
Nope, not a one. Which was probably a very good thing.
That's why it was a good series.
And I encourage you to go check it out, listen to it. Because part of this was celebrating our high school seniors who are graduating, but just talking about, Jesus never said our kids and our students are the church of tomorrow, or the next generation. And Jim just is incredibly passionate about that. So I was grateful to have him teach for us.
Well, what are we going to discuss today?
Well, it's sort of connected with that, but this time of year, graduations, high school, college graduations, all those kinds of things. But every college speaker tends to talk about what's your purpose in life, knowing your purpose in life.
The go-to. I went to a Christian college as well, and that's like
what is that? And it's
50% of the chapels were about what our purpose was.
When I put questions out there of what people want us to teach on, the number one question that people ask at any age is, "What's my purpose?" And I don't know if I think I know why that's part of that, but some of it I wonder if we kind of program, because what do we ask every kid? What are you going to do when you grow up? Who are you going to be when you grow up? What's that like?
My 4-year-old's going to be an astronaut, in case you were wondering.
That doesn't surprise. I figured it was Spider-Man.
Yeah, I think he's gotten to the point where he realizes that Spider-Man's not real. Okay. So he can't be Spider-Man when he grows up. But so I think astronaut's like the next.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
A baseball player.
A baseball player.
I still want to
be basketball.
I still want to be a baseball player when I grow up. I'm at this point, at 34, with the back of a 95-year-old cripple, I am still not 100% convinced that I will not be playing Major League Baseball one day. I think there's still an outside shot. Still a chance.
You can do anything you set your mind to.
I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Right? That's what that verse is about.
We've talked about that scripture before, haven't we?
I actually just talked about that verse. A former player of mine gave me a call the other day, and He just wanted to share some scriptures that he'd been reading, which was like, as a basketball coach who tries to invest in my kids spiritually, that was one of the coolest things ever. But he brought that up because I did a devotion once at that college with our guys on that verse, because every college athlete, not just college athlete, every athlete picks that verse. And so I did a devotion on that verse because I told him, I was like, I love that verse, but I don't love it for the same reason most of you have it on the website as your favorite verse, and talked about contentment and what that verse really is talking about and everything. But that is a good verse. Yeah,
context. We've talked about this in this whole series. Context matters. Other scripture matters. And I think the same is true with this. The whole question of purpose, which just fits in with students, with kids being, the church of the future or the church of today. This whole question of what's my purpose? I think it's a fair question for us to ask. And I don't know that we're just programmed that way. I really do think that I believe scripturally that God designed us to have a purpose. And so when we ask that question, just like last week we were talking about happiness, it comes from a deep-seated, God-created place in our life. We were designed for purpose. And so it's a fair question. But when we ask that question the wrong way, it will lead to results that will mess us up. Yeah. When we ask the question the wrong way, it means sometimes we're always waiting to fully engage. Well, that doesn't fit what my purpose is, so I'm always held back, or I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, so I'm not really going to do anything until I know what I'm supposed to do, or this is what I'm supposed to do and I have to be fully prepared before I can do that kind of thing. I call it a lack of clarity paralysis. Because we don't have clarity, we feel kind of paralyzed with it. Or the other thing that can mess us up is we get involved in purpose comparison. Well, I don't want this purpose. I want that purpose. I like your purpose better than my purpose,
sure.
And we've talked about this before. Comparison is the thief of joy. The other thing that happens with purpose is, and this one of the reasons why I think God doesn't always fully reveal his purpose to some of us as quickly as to others, is because once we get it, we begin to take charge of our lives to make our purpose happen instead of relying on him.
Sure.
A little bit like in the Old Testament, you go back to the Old Testament, in Genesis, the story of Joseph. Joseph's given this dream of he's going to someday be the leader of the family. And what's he do? He starts bragging about these dreams to his older brothers. And the way he kind of did it, and even to his dad, was almost like, I'm going to make this happen. And God wasn't in it. He was just going to make it happen, and it caused all kinds of problems. You got to wonder what route would have happened instead of him being sold into slavery and then imprisoned and accused of all kinds of things, until finally he was able to deliver not only his family but a whole bunch of people from famine if he hadn't tried to take charge. And this is the other thing I heard recently, and I think this is really, really good. A friend of mine was doing some study on this. I think when we ask this question the wrong way, we become legacy focused instead of epitaph focused. Now, I know that takes some explanation, but so much of our world today is legacy focused. What legacy do I want to leave? What legacy do I want to leave? And that's not a bad question to ask. Here's the deal. We get so focused on legacy, 2 generations from now, most of the people won't remember your name. I don't care who you are. And even people, you and I both. It's
a fun thought. Thanks for sharing that with us, Pastor Mike.
You and I both love history. Yes. And there's people whose names we know in history, but how much do we really know about them? There's a lot we know about them. But some of who they are and stuff is just lost, 2 generations. Epitaph is more about less about what you do and leave for the next generation, which is important. But epitaph is more about who you are, who the people closest to you say you are. So here's what I want to do, and I actually want to talk about this 2 weeks in a row, is we need to think differently about purpose when we start asking this. We need to think differently about purpose. So here's the question. Let me throw this. So when I ask you, and I didn't prepare you for this at all because it's not anywhere in the notes, how do you know your purpose in life? What is just some of the first words, the first images, first things that come to your mind?
Yeah. 2 weeks in a row.
The answer
Sunday
is always
school
Jesus.
Answer.
Yeah.
I'm pretty proud of that. Say that question again. I ignored
just
it
when we start talking about discovering your purpose in life, what are just the first thoughts that begin to flow into your head? I caught you off guard with this.
Well, I don't know. I mean, me specifically, or just in general, someone
Either
seeking their purpose. I mean, like for me, I feel like I have a general idea of my purpose, but I mean, their overarching view of our purpose would then be to like seek a relationship with Jesus and further his kingdom, which I know is a Sunday schooly answer, but it's also a correct answer.
But it's also a good answer, yeah.
But I mean, finding your individual purpose, I mean, for me, it took quite a few bumps and hurdles trying to figure that out. I think it's a lot of swinging and missing.
Yeah.
But and then that comes down to, was I trying to find it on my own, or was I listening to what God had for me, things like that. I still don't know every aspect of it, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, seems like that's it's like the what's the meaning of life question.
Yeah,
like what's, that's just such a big question, and it's always so like the overarching one is what I said. Like we all have the same purpose, right? It's to have a relationship with God. That's why we were created, was to be in a relationship with Him. But we each have like a you and I have different specific purposes here on earth, and it takes some of us an entire lifetime.
I think that's the first thing we need to learn and understand if we're going to take a next step in understanding purpose. Is we need to understand the difference and the reality that we all have big purpose, little purpose, or big purpose, specific purpose.
Okay.
So you talked about big purpose. Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, all of your soul, all of your mind, all of your strength. The second is just like it, love your neighbor as yourself. There's big purpose. The great commission that Jesus gave all of his followers was to do what? Was to make disciples. That's big purpose. We are all called, commanded, I think is even better word, to do that. So that's for all of us. So if you want to know what your purpose in life is, love the Lord your God, love people, and help people become disciples of Jesus. Yep. And really, do we need to know anything else other than that? Well, we all want to, right. Some because it's wired in us. But little purpose, or more specific purpose, basically is, how do I do the first three? That's unique to me.
Sure, yeah.
I
like that.
And that's really what it comes into. So what roles, what positions will best fit me, where I live. We tend to want to go, where do I need to live, to fulfill my purpose? Well, maybe where you are is where God wants you right now.
I feel like God wants me right now in Sydney, Australia. So if you could make that happen.
Yeah, Pastor that's my job to make that happen.
Your purpose is to help me live in Sydney, Australia.
Yeah. Gifts, your spiritual gifts, and we've talked about that a little bit. Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 12, Ephesians 4, 1 Peter 4 are some lists of spiritual gifts. Skills, which are different than gifts. Your passions, your loves, your preferences, all those things will come into play. The first thing you need to understand when it comes to purpose, and to begin to think rightly, is big purpose, general purpose, is clear for all of us.
Right.
Little purpose, or more specific purpose, is dependent upon who God uniquely created us to be. And he created us all for a very specific purpose. And I'm not convinced, and I don't know that I have strong scriptural teaching on this. I think it's there. I'm not convinced that we'll all fully discover our purpose until we get into the restoration, get into eternity. Because then sin will be out of the way. I think right now I know right now he's restoring us, forgiving us, restoring us, and preparing us for what our ultimate purpose was originally designed to be made, what we were originally designed to be. Second thing, our purpose, and this is what I just talked about.
I want to stop you for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wouldn't you argue that those are two different things? Like my purpose here in this sin-filled earth clearly wouldn't have existed if the fall hadn't happened, right? So perfect creation, I had my individual purpose would have been entirely different than this. My purpose of, like right now working at a church and coaching, young men and trying to be an example for them, those things wouldn't have been necessary in the way that they are because of the fall. And then my purpose, like you said, once we're restored and new heaven, new earth, and everything's as it was meant to be, that'll be aren't they like two totally different things because of the fall?
Yes and no. It's a little bit like saying, who I am as a child at home is totally different from who I am as a 30 or 40-year-old. Yes, you're two different, it's different, but yet you're still the same person.
Sure.
So, when sin is out of the picture, and we're no longer, big purpose is no longer about making disciples, then we'll be able to lean far more into specifically who we are. And right now we're part of the restoration.
Yeah.
So yes, it's two completely different things. No, it's not in that. It's the continuation of the story that God is writing with your life. Does that make sense? With that? And that's part of what I want to say is we've got to think about this. Your purpose in life is to be fully engaged. How do I want to say this? I don't like the way I wrote it down, so I need to rethink this now that I'm looking at this. God wants you to be fully engaged in your purpose now, and yet not yet, because it's this continual process. We just talked about Joseph, and Joseph, if he had not gotten engaged, part of what God gave him those dreams was to begin to prepare him and bring him into engaging with his purpose, to prepare him for what was coming. Think maybe a better example of this is David. Everybody wrote David off, but God was preparing him. He was a shepherd. No one was paying any attention to him, and yet he took out the lion, he took out the bear. God was preparing him for this. So some of the problem we face when we think wrongly about purpose for our life is we're kind of waiting. Just tell me what it is, and then I'll engage. Tell me what it is, and then I'll engage. Well, I believe the only way you fully discover it is by engaging fully as you go. If David hadn't fully engaged as a shepherd, he wouldn't have been prepared to be the warrior later on.
Sure. And
the leader later on. So it's a little bit like what you say. You've got to take some swings and misses.
Yeah.
There's my sports metaphor for the day. But
really, it was my sports metaphor.
Yeah, it was,
you just stole it.
I just stole it. Here's another thing. Discovering our purpose can be the primary way God grows and restores us. So this goes back to some of what you were just asking about. We see purpose as a target. I think God sees purpose, at least on this side of eternity, as a path. It's part of the process of how he grows us. You think of Paul. Paul, before he met Jesus, he was this loudmouth, passionate, highly educated leader. What was he like after he met Jesus? Loudmouth, passionate, highly educated leader, but who was now what? All about the kingdom, and God was growing him along the way. I think part of the process of discovering your purpose is part of the way that God wants to grow you and restore you. So we just want to know the end goal. Show me the picture, and then I'll start aiming towards it. And God's going, no, I think it's going to be a little bit, for some of us, more like a puzzle. We're going to reveal this along the way. So it's going to be part of the restoration process for us.
Why is that our mindset and our viewpoint? Why do we see purpose? You said purpose is a path, not a target, which I liked a lot. But why for us is purpose a target?
Well, I think part of it is because sin has caused us to be self-reliant. And so when okay. I see it as a target, what am I doing? I'm going back to what I'm familiar with. I'm aiming at it. Thanks, God, for revealing that to me. Now I'll go after it. Yep. And God's saying, that's not who I created you to be. I created you to be in community with me. And so if, we are never more desperate for God than when we forget how desperate we are for God. And so that's part of why I think he is careful how much he reveals. And sometimes I think, I believe years ago, me sitting on the side of a mountain, he gave me a pretty clear picture of some things for my life. But as I've walked on, I realized, he didn't give me the whole picture.
Sure.
He gave me what I needed to know right here and right now. I'm rereading through one of my favorite series, fantasy series right now, the whole Lord of the Rings series, and listening to it. And one of the things you realize, Frodo, so the hero of this story, if he had known all that was ahead of him, he would not have said yes.
Yeah.
but he grew so much along the way. And I think I don't know that Tolkien himself said he didn't mean it as an allegory. And yet I think is incredible allegory for us of, we don't know what's all ahead of us. And if we knew, we probably wouldn't say yes, or we'd head in the other direction.
Yeah.
And so he takes us on a way.
My dad, you can check back in now.
Yeah.
I know as soon as you heard Pastor Mike say Frodo, you checked out.
Yes. We could talk about C.S. Lewis. Would that be better? But
no, any fantasy writing,
he's gone.
He's done. Yeah. He loves Lewis, but not for that. Not for Narnia or the Space Odyssey.
I think the other thing we need to get a right handle on is our purpose. How and when we engage in our purpose is dependent on who we are. Some of it depends on season of life, stage of life, how much has gotten broken in our life, because we all have lots of broken in our life. But some things, like we talked about a few weeks ago, sin is broken. Some of our choices broke us more than other things. Maturity, our level of obedience, our personality. Some personalities are more of a seize the day and take charge, and some are more dependent. Well, if my personality is more dependent, he might show me a little bit more, and then passions and gifts.
Is my purpose my job?
No, but your job can be a reflection of your purpose.
How so?
Here's the deal. I think your purpose, your job is twofold. It can be what you do is to be part of the kingdom. In this world, just brass tacks, part of what a job is just, I need to put food on the table, right? And sometimes I need a job in order to be able to engage in my purpose.
Sure.
But there are some times that my purpose is carried out in my job. I think marketplace leaders have some of the greatest opportunity of any of us right now. And they think, all I'm here doing is, drilling for oil or, teaching students or whatever. But if you understand your purpose, I'll guarantee your job will give you an opportunity to act on your purpose. So it's like saying, is my arm my body? No, it's part of my body. My job is like my arm. It can be part of my purpose.
I think that's a big struggle for Americans, where our job, what's the first question you ask somebody when you meet them? You're at a party and you get introduced to someone new, and then the person who introduced you wanders off, and you're just sitting staring at this new person. What's your go-to?
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do for a living? And even, excuse me, when my wife and I traveled to Australia the last time, and we would meet new people, I spent days with some people who didn't ask me what I did for a living.
Yeah.
They wanted to know what I do for fun, and what I like and what my sense of humor is like. But the job thing, there's just such a cultural difference compared to what we have, where our identity is so wrapped up in our job.
Isn't it?
And I think sometimes because of that, our purpose then gets wrapped up in our job, where I feel like I'm living a purposeless life if I'm not doing this thing. For me, for instance, I started coaching college basketball when I was 21, turned 22 pretty quickly, but I was certain, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to be a college basketball coach. And it's been 4 years now since I've been a college basketball coach. Now I'm a high school basketball coach, so it's not like I strayed that far off. But still, if I hadn't gotten to the point where I understood that, my entire purpose isn't specifically to be that college basketball coach, I would feel so disconnected from what I feel like I'm supposed to do, which I still feel like, that's something that, I hope to get back to, and something that I'm supposed to do. But I've gotten an understanding of kind of like what you were saying, where what I'm doing is just an avenue to what my purpose is. It's a way that it's a tool basically that God has given me to fulfill my purpose. And it's not, sometimes he's going to give me a different tool. I had that tool for a decade, and now I have a different tool right now. And 10 years from now, I'll probably be doing something a little different than what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I think a couple of weeks ago, Kylie and I, when we were talking about Jesus never said, God will never give you more than you can handle. We talked about just some different sayings that people throw out, like, this is just truth. And I think one of the things she threw out was, if you discover what makes you happy, you'll never need to. If you do what makes you happy, you'll never need to work another day in your life. Or something like that.
What is it? It's like if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah,
or something like
that. No, some days it's work. Yeah. I know you love being a coach, but there are some days it's work.
Man.
And
for sure.
Is that where that comes from? I don't know. I do think that what we do. I mean, goes back to Genesis. What we do is wrapped up in our identity, and I think it was meant to, not to define us, but it's a reflection of it.
Yeah.
And those are two different things. We tend to think what we do defines us, instead of it being a reflection of who we are. So here's what I want to do, kind of to give us some homework at the end, is just how to begin to discover for yourself your more specific purpose. And I think your first question is to ask, am I following the leader who designed me? If you aren't following Jesus, then this whole question is a moot point, because you might discover some of it, but you'll never discover all of it, because ultimately you were designed to be in relationship with him. Second thing is, begin to engage now. Two words here: engage and experiment. Just begin to engage and discover. Purpose is more often than not discovered along the way. It's like, oh, I'm not good at that. I was talking to a parent recently who was talking about their teenage son who is moving into a new job for the summer. And I was going, why would he do that? It's entirely different from what he's doing right now. He said, he just wants to figure out what he likes. And he doesn't know if he likes it unless he tries it. Like, that's a great parent right there. And that's a mature high schooler right there to figure that out. Someone said it's real hard to steer a parked car. And if you and I are waiting, and saying, okay, God, show me the purpose. God says, I want you to engage. So serve, be in a group, do stuff, kinds of things. And the third thing is just pay attention to you. Pay attention to you. Your personality. Now, and we've talked about personality tests before. Some people,
my favorite.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people, they take personality tests too far, and they use them to define. Here's who you are, and if you act outside of that, you aren't being real. But a personality test or awareness, and there's all kinds of. It just helps you understand who you are, and God made you that way. Yes, it's been affected by sin, but God made you that way. Spiritual gifts tests. And tests help, but they aren't everything. I took some spiritual gift tests for years, and it said like this. I don't remember what it was. There was one that was high on it, and I started going, okay, maybe I need to do that. And I started doing it. It's like, oh, I don't like this, and I wasn't any good at that. So I have no idea why. It's just the way the questions are asked. But I discovered that. So just pay attention. Pay attention to what makes your heart beat faster, what excites you. Pay attention to the experiences God brings your way. Where are you effective? Where are you not effective? What do you enjoy? This isn't about making you happy, but God doesn't want you to do something that every day you're going to go, oh, man. He truly wants you to live life to the full. So pay attention to that. Not that everything will be easy and enjoyable. And then the big one is, where and when have you experienced the most growth? Where and when have you experienced most growth? And just experiment. And then capture and write down those God moments and leadings. So ask, am I following Jesus? Do something now, and then pay attention to you. So wherever you're at, you always ask me at the end, what's the homework? There's your homework.
That's
so I beat you to it.
You did? That's my only job is to ask what the homework is. So it's to do one of those three, figure out where we are.
If you don't have a relationship with Jesus, start there.
Yeah, always.
Second, are you doing something now? Engage and experiment. Because the third one, you can't pay attention to who you are unless you're doing stuff to help you realize who you are. And God will begin to reveal that to you.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest steps for me when I was in college, like we talked about the very... What did you? It's the most what time of your life?
Vulnerable.
Yeah, and I changed my major like 5 times. I wasn't sure. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? And I remember talking with my dad, and he just pushed me towards like, what do you have a talent for? and what has God given you a passion for? And maybe that's something you have to explore. And that's how I ended up focusing on coaching, because I was like, well, I love coaching, and I'm good at coaching. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's maybe I'm supposed to be involved in athletics and ministering to kids that way. So for me, that was a really big one. So yeah, you brought passions up like 5 times and just kept bringing that back into my mind. But well, thank you, Pastor Mike. This has been episode 47 of the Grow Podcast. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet, so you get notified when the new episodes go up. And if you haven't joined us yet on our YouTube channel to watch the video podcast, make sure you do that. You can see Pastor Mike's bright blue. Is it, robin's egg blue?
I have no idea. Blue works.
Greenish blue. It's a very beautiful shirt. You should definitely go check it out. Yes, we didn't have spring here in Williston. We had a ridiculously long winter that has jumped into summer pretty much. So I'm glad you are representing the season we did not have. But yeah, make sure you subscribe. New episodes always go up on Mondays, so you can always check out the new episode. New series starting this next weekend. Do you want to tease it?
Sure. For the next 3 weeks across all of our campuses in New Hope here, we have our 3 church planting pastors speaking. So you aren't stuck with me. You get 3 different people. So Pastor Russ, who we're sending to Ohio to replant a church. Pastor Leo, who is planting, I'll say PH Church, because the Tagalog word is...
None of us are good at saying it.
Good. Is going to speak and share the vision for that church, which is here in Williston, where we are, for the Filipino and the rest of the community as well, and just doing an incredible job. And then Pastor Aaron, who we've sent out to Bismarck, North Dakota, and is in the process of planting that. And we need this, not just to hear about the stories of what's happening in their churches, but I think we need to understand that when we are called to be multipliers, our purpose, it's to make sure we're going to a lost world and being part of sending people out. I think you're really going to be encouraged. I had all 3 of them share with a group of leaders here a few weeks ago, and they said it was like the best thing that they've experienced all year long. Yeah. So really want to encourage you to dive in, and then we'll come back. We've got some exciting things planned for the summer.
Yeah. Yep. It's going to be great. And we've kept you here longer than normal on the Grow Podcast. So we will see you next time.